The Persian Empire had already launched its invasion of the Greek territory. Without finding much resistance, they kept subduing the Greek city-states along the way. But the route towards the domination of Greece would not be as easy as the Persians had forecasted. Many Greek cities came together to halt the Persian horde's advance. Over land, the Spartans tried to contain them in the gorge of Thermopylae. At sea, the Athenian fleet and its allies would play a decisive role. The Athenians were led by Themistocles, who, for more than 10 years before, had managed to convince the citizens of Athens of the importance of edifying a strong fleet, because he knew that the victory of the Greeks over the Persians at the Battle of Marathon was just the first of several that would follow. His war vessels were known as triremes, since they had 3 tiers of rowers, and they were the very best in terms of war vessels. In an initial stage, the fleet would give coverage to the Spartans who fought on land, hence preventing the Persian navy to disembark their troops in the rear of the Greeks fighting at Thermopylae. However, after the fall of Leonidas and his 300, Themistocles ordered his fleet to return to Athens. After having surpassed the Spartan blockade, the Persian army kept going and conquered city after city until they reached the gates of Athens. The city, for the most part, had been almost completely evacuated, aware that anyone who opted for staying in the city would be accepting their death sentence. Xerxes invaded the city, pillaging everything that he could and destroying everything that was left behind. He had fulfilled his father's wish to burn Athens to ashes. But his victory was not yet complete. The Athenian navy had to be defeated as well. The fleet was docked at the Straits of Salamis, near Athens. Themistocles found himself in a difficult situation. The ship ratio was 2-to-1 in favor of the Persians. Even though the Greeks had modern vessels, the Persian fleet was formed by experienced Phoenician and Egyptian sailors. Victory seemed impossible to reach. But Themistocles was already a thorough connoisseur of Persian strategies and realized that they always preferred to avoid direct and difficult clashes. They were always prone to rely on betrayals to streamline their paths. That was the situation in Miletus and Thermopylae, and so Salamis would not be any different. But this time, Themistocles would use a betrayal to his advantage. He sent his reliable servant on a mission to deceive Xerxes. The Greek man pretended to be a traitor and said he had valuable information to the Persians, which he would share in exchange for a reward. The Persians were curious to know what the traitor had to say. He disclosed the place where the Greek fleet was hidden, saying that the troops were disorganized and on the brink of defection. The Persian intelligence, with its clever spies, already knew that the Greek leaders were fighting between themselves, and they glimpsed a repetition of the Battle of Lade, where the Greeks deserted during the fight, granting an easy victory to the Persians. Xerxes decided to send his great fleet for an attack against Greece and end the Greek navy once and for all. The Persian navy had bitten the bait of Themistocles and headed towards the Straits of Salamis. When entering the straits, the Persian vessels were astounded. What should have been a jumbled enemy was actually an opponent established in battle formation and motivated to stand up for their land. Akin to the Battle of Thermopylae, the Straits of Salamis neutralized the numerical advantage of the Persian vessels, as there was not much space to maneuver. The battle started, and the Greeks attacked the Persian vessels with their rams of bronze. Many Persian vessels sunk right away. Those that managed to resist the impact were then approached, and a one-on-one fight would take place on the decks of the ships. The Greek vessels were more maneuverable, and so they started encircling the Persians. Even though the Persians had many ships, they got stuck, and so they started to collide and cause damage onto their own allies. Xerxes watched everything from a throne placed on top of the hill. He could not believe what was happening. The Persian war vessels were being sunk one by one. Thousands of soldiers were drowning or struggled for their lives amid the ships. The Persian men who could swim up to the beach were as unlikely as those who drowned, because, on the shores, Greek hoplites were ready to kill those who made it to the beach. The Persian defeat became evident after they lost 1/3 of their fleet, and so the admiral ordered a retreat. The Greek victory was decisive. Now Themistocles and his ships ruled the seas of Greece. Winter was coming. War would have to wait. Xerxes decided that the ruined city of Athens was no place for the king of the world, and so he decided to return to Asia. Nonetheless, a considerable part of his gigantic army stayed under the command of General Mardonius, having the mission to dominate the rest of Greece.